All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Black and White TV. I'm Jamila Millette.
And I'm Sean Cooper.
All right. So we are here to talk about various topics that can be seen as black and white. And we are going to lean into the gray, the pieces that are uncomfortable, awkward, sometimes beautiful.
Maybe.
And hopefully get to a place where we challenge ourselves as well as you.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us. We're excited to dive into one of our favorite topics, Alexander
Hamilton. Yeah, you were going to say it all regular.
Well, you know, I was going to let you do the singing. But... So, have you read the book?
I have not, and I will not.
Come on.
I don't want to.
It's only about 2,000 pages long.
I have time.
Yeah, well...
No, he wants you to hold up the book.
Well, you know, you don't have to read the book because...
But did you? Did you read it?
You know, I read...
Because it looks like... His one was like, it looks like I read...
About half.
Okay, we'll count it.
Yeah.
So 1,000.
Well, you know, what's interesting is it's kind of like the play.
Uh-huh.
I like the first half better, too. Yeah.
Oh.
Like,
are you allowed to say that?
In our vehicles, when we're listening to Hamilton, rarely do we go into the second half.
Wow.
For one, it's just very depressing. Like, it just goes, like, down pretty fast. But, yeah, I love it.
I think for content for your children, I think it's appropriate that you stay in
It probably is. Yeah, good point. Maybe that's the other reason.
Because it gets real scandalous.
How did you first hear about Hamilton?
First way I heard about Hamilton was my first roommate's younger sister. I want you to know that these are white people, okay? And she played it, and I was just like, I don't know if the audio wasn't that great or what, but I was like not interested. And she then shared with us. This is a confession time. It was the bootleg copy.
Oh, I see.
So I saw the original cast.
You did.
Through someone else's.
Interesting.
And it was really good quality. And they even had a moment where they put the camera down, because it was like something's happening, and then they came back up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that is when I fell in like with the play, was actually seeing it. Then I wanted to get into the music, and here I am.
Yeah. For me, several of us, we were going up to New York for our work. We were interviewing and recruiting interns for a summer 8-week thing that we were doing, and through a friend of a friend at the what's the Rogers Theater, I think, is in New York where it's at. It was the head audio engineer for the show, and so couple emails back and forth, and he said that he might be able to get us tickets in, but it's kind of like you had to wait till 24 hours before. So we were like super excited, but not really even sure. So I just started downloading music, listening to music.
Are you saying like music in general or
Hamilton? Yeah.
I just started downloading some music.
And it was amazing. and started reading, what I could to kind of get caught up on the whole story.
Yeah.
Because I think that's partly what's so fascinating about Alexander Hamilton is most of us don't grow up hearing much about him. Mm-hmm. He's sort of the forgotten, one of the forgotten fathers that sort of is pushed to the side. And so we got to go up there, and before we flew out, we got an email notification saying that we had 2 tickets that we could use. And so we went up, and it's just ridiculous. And you've seen it too. It's just mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw it live. So here's the other thing too. It was really precious. My roommate's younger sister, she was like, I will only show you this bootleg version if you agree that if it becomes available in your city or you're like able to watch it legit, that you will.
Okay.
Because you have to make that commitment.
Yeah.
And so we made that commitment, and I did.
There you go. So you justified it.
I did.
You
got to justify when you're doing shady stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple interesting things in terms of, we were talking about this earlier.
Are you going to give us like fun facts?
Fun facts.
Fun facts.
So
here they are.
Because of its hip-hop writing and singing style, the word count of the play is through the roof. So, for instance, Oklahoma, 4,300 or so words in the whole play. Phantom of the Opera, 4,700, roughly. So we're talking about the 4,000s.
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton, 20,520 words. That's 5 times the word count.
It's like
6
women,
times.
It's like women to men.
It's unbelievable. Even the word count per minute averages around 144 per minute. And then
wait. You can't and then that. 144 what?
Words per minute.
Per minute. 60 seconds, 144 words.
Yeah, but it's even crazier than that because the song, that for some it's one of their favorites, Guns and Ships, clocks in at 6.3 words per second.
Can you do that? Can you do that?
I want you to try.
I want you to try.
Do it.
I think this is your moment.
No, I'm sure I cannot do it. But yeah, so crazy. They just blew the charts on so many levels. What's your favorite song?
Satisfied.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, you didn't see that coming.
It's not on my list. What? Like, why do you?
Oh man, Angelica's vocals.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What? Like because. The intricacies of the song that happens, not like you don't have to necessarily see it, but the fact that you're going in reverse, you're going back in time, you're replaying certain pieces, and it, like I don't know if y'all like if you do watch it, you will see the vein popping out. Like she is going for it on this song. She's rapping, she's singing, like it's too good.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of the things that the reason people love theater so much, especially live theater, is when you can see veins, when you can see like
King George spitting.
Like, I mean, it's one of the things that I was in awe of was just literally seeing. Fortunately, I wasn't in the front row because it was spray. There was constant spray.
Before COVID.
Yeah. And I was like, man. And it's just so cool that it requires such a high level of commitment.
Yeah.
It's very vulnerable. And I think that's what makes live theater so good.
Amazing.
So.
Wait, what's your favorite song? What?
I love Right Hand Man.
Okay.
I just love George Washington's introduction.
He's brilliant.
It's so good, and
his voice is.
Well, and the way that song ends, it kind of builds.
Do you want to sing the ending?
I can't even remember. And he kind of comes up front and center, and he takes out his sword, and it ends in this big it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so for those that don't know the story,
sad.
Yeah, let's
sad.
It's okay. There's time. Is it even still available?
He's kinder.
You can watch
on
it
Disney.
on Disney Plus. Right. So definitely check it out. You get to watch the original cast do an amazing job with their performance. So Alexander Hamilton, he grows up in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. Do you want to sing that part? I'm just going to keep looking to you to sing certain sections.
We're just going to keep asking each other, and then something's going to happen we both break into song together. Right. Yeah.
So he's in the Caribbean. He is from St. Croix, and it's a small island. A hurricane, like one of those record 1 in 100 years kind of.
I'm trying not to sing now.
Comes through.
A hurricane came. Yeah, it's good.
Totally wipes out the island. It's so powerful. Even historically, there's incredible descriptions of how violent that storm was. And then in the midst of all of that, Hamilton writes for a local newspaper this incredible piece describing what happened. And from there, like, you want to sing it? They took a collection. Go ahead. They take a collection. And I'm visually imagining this. It's so cool. The town is... Sing it!
No, thank you.
So the town is...
It's not karaoke.
They're so blown away by Hamilton's ability to write and describe very beautifully and poetically the violence of what they had just experienced, that they're like, we got to send this guy to the mainland. Go ahead, sing. And so they literally like take up money from each other and just
took up a collection just to send him to the mainland.
Exactly.
Forget your education.
Send him off. And so, without going into a whole lot more detail, you got to watch the whole thing. But that's kind of how his life starts.
Or at least listen to the first song.
Listen to the first
It'll
song.
tell you a good deal.
Did you know that Lin-Manuel, who, for those who don't know, was the writer, director, he
Star.
actually was in the original cast, played Alexander Hamilton. He was reading this book on his honeymoon, I think.
He was on
vacation.
Some kind of vacation.
And
where you don't read that.
Did you know that it took him a year to write just the first song? And it took another year just to write the second song. Isn't that crazy?
I did not know that.
I kept thinking, like, how often do I feel like I've got a good idea and I've got to make this idea happen in 48 hours? And it took him 2 years just to write the first two songs.
So what's also interesting about that is the first time was it the first time? I don't know, whatever. I saw him sing the first song by himself to the Obamas.
That was amazing. You can Google that.
Yeah, you can. You can Google that. It's on the YouTube.
And I don't know there's like a friend of his who's on the piano.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
I don't even know that he had the whole song finished. Did he? I
think so. But it didn't have all the intricacies in there.
Yeah.
And I actually, so I actually was using it as inspiration because I was like, I'm going to do this song for karaoke. But it's like however many different people are doing this song. Anyway, but to watch him do it, I was like, I could do it. It's terribly hard.
Yeah, it's crazy. Very talented.
I can be multiple people, though. So.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, if you are into theater or not, In the Heights, he also...
Which is coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie.
In movie, yeah.
In the theater.
The theater, as
they
say.
Which people haven't been going to, but I have. I went.
Totally.
Yeah.
Good for you.
You can do it.
All right. Okay, but... Hamilton's also not without controversy. Anytime we pull a piece of history, a story from that time in history, it's complex, it's complicated. Lin-Manuel took some heat, took some criticism, because in some ways people felt like he was glossing over certain issues, slavery especially, immigration also.
Also, even the price of tickets to see this film, which is like predominantly hip hop, and thinking about like who can't see it, not the film but the play, right? Like it's like these tickets are like $600, $900, and even that was controversial too.
Definitely. So a couple of the things that we had been talking about as it relates to him is, you know, Hamilton was not someone who, like all those people that we sometimes idolize, or we create them as these heroes of a time period where, you know, they owned slaves. Not just Hamilton, but Jefferson, Washington. And so the play doesn't necessarily tackle that as a topic as strongly as some felt could have or should have. So that's hard, you know, because obviously in this time period we want those issues to come out to the forefront. So I think it's interesting. Lin-Manuel, he's open to that criticism, just kind of researching. He acknowledges that it was not possible to either tackle it because of the volume, or in a lot of cases, what I've heard him say and others is it wasn't intended to be the be-all, end-all.
Right. It's not his real autobiography.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, for people like me who knew nothing really of Hamilton, now it pulled me in. And so topics like immigration or slavery.
So now you want to know more.
Yeah. And so hopefully for a lot of people it did that.
Yeah. I think that's like the difference between the book and the movie, right? Like people are like, the book was way better and it had more detail, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how long did it take you to read the book? Right? And then how long do they have to tell you this story in a movie? Thank you. That's my argument for all book movie. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think for me, what his life story does, but especially because of the emotion and the passion and the theatrical piece is, and this is just credit to Lin-Manuel's writing, it really pulls you into just the human experience in general. Hamilton, he's an immigrant who comes to the U.S. He's trying to make a name for himself. He ends up in the circle of President Washington, and in so many ways he's battling for going from a nobody in St. Croix to trying to establish himself in a new country. But then even some of the crazy things like the fact that his son was killed, Philip was killed in a duel, and as I understand it, not far from the same spot where Philip died in a duel is where
Hamilton.
Aaron Burr shot Hamilton.
Right. Yeah.
You know where that happened, right? Jersey. So.
Wow, the shade.
Yeah, your state.
Wow, the
needs
shade.
To own up to a little
it's okay
bit of,
because there's things that will happen off camera, and he will repent.
Yeah.
I just want Jersey people to know, I'm not slipping. He will repent later.
Yeah. All right, let me read this quote from Lin-Manuel on choosing the cast.
Okay.
Because I think you and I have talked about this for a couple years now. Just the amazing mosaic of cast members, that he pulled from. And this is what he said in the New York Times in an article. Lin-Manuel said, "This is a story about America then told by America now. And we want to eliminate any distance. Our story should look the way our country looks. Then we found the best people to embody these parts. I think it's a very powerful statement without having to be a statement." I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of things. One of which is the difference between diversity and inclusion, right? So when we talk about diversity, right, you could just have, you could do this play, you could have done it as an opera, right? You could do this play, you could have done it, in just various genres, right? But to do this play with so much hip hop, R&B, jazz, just all these beautiful pieces, and to do it with various people, you have to be inclusive about that. You have to include them in this way to tell the story. To tell the story through rap, to tell the story through R&B is that's the part that was deeply innovative, and super engaging. And you're telling the story of white people. This is white people's story. You know what I mean? We're saying it's our story and everything like that. But it's a story that the cast, if it was picked based off of who these people really are, it would just be white people and you wear wigs and you do your thing. But to have it intentionally be diverse and inclusive, it gives depth and layers to the story that would not have been had you had an all-white cast. You know what I mean? It's the argument that I get when I talk to people about inclusivity and diversity and things of that nature is a lot of people just pushing back of well, why can't a white person do it? Why can't a white person do it? And what you're showing and telling is that of you don't value what can happen when you include and diversify who's around you. If you think about if you have friend groups that are diverse, and you were even intentional about that, there's a difference between that and you just happening to be in a homogenous friend group, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's deeply powerful, that element of storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's part of what draws, for me, it's what really drew me in was, it was to Lin-Manuel's point, you look at it and at first glance, you obviously are thinking, okay, this isn't how those original people, to your point, they were all white. Mm-hmm. But then it sort of grabs you in a way that reminds you it's the America we are working for and towards, which is an inclusive, not just diverse. In fact, that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about studying diversity and inclusion is, for a long time, what companies have strived for is that their staff was very diverse. And that's an easy box to check off.
Right.
You know, you can create hiring policies and create certain guidelines in your company to make sure when you take a company photo at Christmas, it looks like there's more color than just white people. But at the end of the day, if it's only diverse without there being a sense of inclusion,
like, we need you,
we need your voice, we need your perspective. You're
Right.
not just something that gives us a bragging point that we have more than just all white staff. And so that's where the real work has to take place, is how are we making sure, whether it's in our circle of friendships like you were saying before, or it's in the companies that we work in, that we aren't just checking boxes off, but we're saying your unique upbringing, your unique background, the perspective, your identity,
Right.
your ethnic richness,
Right.
it's going to help us make better decisions as
Right.
a company. And
Yeah.
so that's the hard work that I think we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, you have to look around, right? It's the same argument from man to woman, right? Like, if you're like, well, a man could do this job, a man could. If you keep saying that, then you'll negate the woman, right? Like, what does a woman bring? What's the value? Like, all those kind of things. And so I think it's important because sometimes you just don't see it, right? You're just kind of like in your own whatever. Like, the fact that there was Women's History Month, and I had my mentee, this young lady, she's like, well, where's Men's History Month? I was like, girl, that's every month. Kind of a thing. It's the same thing where I hear, like, people are like, well, why isn't there white entertainment television? I'm like, that's entertainment television, like, period, right? So that's why you have these places and spaces where people are like, we want to be a part of telling stories too. And so, yeah, so it's beautiful if you can look around and see who's not in the room, whose voice is missing, and invite them, like, authentically invite them, and not just to check, but to actually be like, be here with us and let's do this together. Yeah.
Well, and I think, to me, the key word that you said is intentionality. Even with the topic of diversity and inclusion, you really have to build in practices that create a culture where people's voices can be heard. So, for instance, some of the stuff that I really appreciated from some of the studies that I did just for a short time with Cornell University was the fact that you have to recognize, for instance, that when you're having, let's just say, a staff meeting, there's a pecking order that is subversive sometimes. But if there's women in the room, you want to be sure that they are heard in a culture where often they feel like they need to be silent, or even if you just remove the male-female dilemma, the tension there, it also can have to do with titles, tenure. It's easy for people who are white and in a position of power and maybe have been there longer to dominate the conversation, be the first one to talk, and so
you've never experienced this before, right?
Never.
Right.
I've never even done this before.
Right. No.
So it takes intentionality, though. You literally have to relearn, okay, if I value diversity and I value inclusion, then it means at this staff meeting, I am going to initiate, like, I want you to speak first, and I want you to speak, and I'll be the last to speak.
And how do you do that in a way that doesn't come off as like white savior?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to come from a genuine place from your heart. I know that sounds very touchy-feely, but I think it is there. It can't just be academic.
Right.
You can't walk in with a little sticky note that says, hey, the right thing is for me to call on Jay first and then call on this person second. And as soon as I've given them enough time,
then I'm in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You have to really want to be impacted by those.
Right.
And you have to have an open hand to how the decision might change.
Right. So it's listening to listen, not listening to speak.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah. Which is hard. We all want to be heard.
Right.
But that's some of the hard work that we can learn from Lin-Manuel and from Hamilton.
Yeah.
I think we did all right.
Yeah, we did it.
We should do this again, though.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again.
We'll cover the second half of Hamilton next time. Hey, thanks, friends, for coming and listening and watching whatever device or platform you're checking this out on. It means a lot to us to have this conversation together. That's what this is all about, is how can we listen, how can we learn, and how can we continue these conversations even in the coming weeks. So hope you found a little handle, a little takeaway. Go listen, download Hamilton.
Yes.
And listen to it, memorize it. We'll see you next time.